Yesterday was day 6. It was a big day for dear old Wooden Potatoes because it was on day 6 that I finished the story. Yes, I have now reached the point where I do not have to fear spoilers. That said, the video itself today will not contain any. I'm going to do a big geek out video talking about my general takeaway and fun stuff to have come and reactions from the story probably a little bit later on today. So if you guys are looking forward to that, as I know most of you are, that will be coming right then and there. It's not going to be a full review and it's not going to be even particularly informative, because I think there's lots of little areas of the story I'm still unclear on, having only finished my first run through, but I wanted to take the time to talk about it because there's so much going on, and it'll be nice to then give myself a bit of space to do some better stuff about it a little bit later, more in my Living World recap style. So yeah, great day, and generally speaking, that took a lot of my time. I mentioned that Act 3 felt like it had been going a bit quick. But the remaining aspects of Act 3 that had to do, specifically those in the last map, Vabbi, did have some length to them, and most of my time in Guild Wars 2 was indeed playing around with that. So there's a bit less to talk about on the other side of things. I also spent a lot of time on day 6 making my mount spotlights, or finishing up my mount spotlights, as well as the regular stuff I've been doing, so the playtime was a little bit on the shorter side. But there were some great things that happened. First of all, I finished my Jackal. The final mastery. Turns out there were a couple of very easy mastery points that I just didn't know about the day before that I could have quite comfortably picked up without doing these more intricate achievements. And especially when you get to Vabbi, there's even more. I don't know how I feel about this. There's like an overabundance of mastery points, and it's so easy to bypass the more fun content the devs have put in the game, the more involved content the devs have put in the game, just because you can go press F on a couple of things instead. We're going to be in the same situation on this expansion as with Heart of Thorns, where there's going to be loads of excess mastery points that we'll never ever spend on anything, and all they exist for is to be a buffer for exceptionally casual players. And stuff like this is always fun to me to look at, like, from the sidelines, because it doesn't appeal to me as a gamer whatsoever, but I know it appeals to other people, and that's got to have some value for the MMO as a whole. But hey, yeah, so the masteries are done. Something else that occurred to me as well, now that I'm done with the masteries, is generally my disappointments that exist with this during the Heart of Thorns days exist here too, and in some ways have been kind of exacerbated. So, like in Heart of Thorns, one of my favorite feelings from the mastery system was logging in on the jungle and being like, oh god, what faction do I want to train with first? Do I care more about the Itzel, the Nuhawk, the Exalted? Do I care more about my glider? Like the actual RPG decision of who do you go with first, making that choice was one of the most profoundly fun parts of the Heart of Thorns experience. Now, it's a little more than a distant memory for most of us now due to the account-bound nature, and I was looking forward to that in Path of Fire, because Living World Season 3 didn't give that to us either. Living World Season 3 was just one path through the whole thing. And so POF came out. It was only as I finished the Jackal off I realized I didn't get that here. It kind of felt the same way as Living World Season 3. I just did the Raptor and maxed it out, and then I did the Springer and maxed it out, and then I did the Skimmer and maxed it out, and finally I did the Jackal maxed out. I never really had a choice to pick which mount I really wanted to sort of commune with. I could have had that choice. Many people have pointed out that really you can skip the T4, which is the one that shares your capabilities amongst all mounts. Generally, I think that those are all really flavorless and really boring, but I didn't do that, and my experience was just to sort of linearly go through the whole list. I'm curious how you guys felt with that one. There's a lot to talk about with masteries in terms of the new mounts and how they feel in core tier areas. I feel like a bit of an alien in the community right now, and that everyone loves those mounts in core tier areas, and all I can do is fixate and worry and piss and moan about how they sort of invalidate those initial experiences. Like I showed off a spotlight video of the Springer, completely bypassing everything that Dry Top was about. Like, you don't have to look at any Zephyrite crystals. The entire flavor of that map is gone, and it forevermore will be, essentially, unless you can resist the temptation to ride the mount and make life a million times easier for yourself once you get the mastery. But hey, let's not drag down the video too much in mastery discussion. It's pretty rewarding to have everything finished and to be getting my spirit shards again, and I think my experience on my second character will be quite different then, because I'll have all 4 mounts immediately to go. And I do mean 4 mounts, because I do not have the final hidden one just yet, which I'll talk about very soon. So let's go on. So yesterday I mentioned that there were a couple more areas of the Desolation I still hadn't explored, and so I've now done those. That was namely along the Bone Wall at the very north of the map. These were areas of the desolation that didn't even feel particularly desolate. So one of them to the northeast, you can find a very lush, verdant area. There's a hidden Cormier little shrine out there that some humans are worshipping at, and of course they shouldn't be, because they are a part of Palawa Joko's kingdom, and if they got caught, then they'd be in serious trouble. But you can kneel at this statue and get some progress on one of your achievements. There's also a random dynamic event there with a woman who's lost her raptor mount that you can escort her to go find, and it's like a really weird event because it just exists on its own in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't chain into anything. It's just there. And I can imagine this is the kind of event that a lot of people would skip. I've been really making sure I try and do every event I find, so I did play it, but I can't imagine many people have been participating on this one. Beautiful looking area though. And then more interestingly perhaps to the northwest is a Sulphur Quarry. So this appeared in the trailer. This is the area with these big water pipes that I had speculated might have something to do with the dam and irrigation and things being taken from the River Elon, moving it down through the desolation. None of that story really existed. All those speculations were kind of worthless. It is a gorgeous looking place. What really caught my eye though is the fact it's called the Imperial Sulphur Quarry. I think the word Imperial is there. And there are these coins scattered all around that you can collect, a little bit like the Season 3 achievements where you'll find Masart tokens and whatnot around. But the use of this word Imperial, I don't really know whether there's any deeper meaning behind that, but something occurred to me, and that's how desperately, as I've been playing Path of Fire, I have been looking for hints about Cantha. Guys, you have no idea. Like, this is such high quality. This is such a good expansion. And now that we've explored these regions of the world, which were very high on my list, obviously now the main thing that is left, in my mind, and the mind of many Guild Wars geeks, genuinely is Cantha. I have never been so heavily on the Cantha hype train as I am right now. The idea that the story could progressively continue going south until we get to some futuristic Blade Runner style city and re-explore Xingji with its quaint, more rustic feel that has been preserved over 250 years, the revisiting of the Jade Sea as it's melted and perhaps some chunks of iceberg-like slabs of jade maybe still floating around, the Echo Vowed Forest, learning more about Ergos and whether there's any relation to the Survivor. All of this stuff I'm so fascinated by. Just because of how good Path of Fire has been, and multiple times through the story I'm like, is that a hint about Cantha? Is that a hint about Cantha? And I had it again here at the quarry, and this one is in the open world, so I can talk quite openly about this one to you guys. I don't know whether it is a reference. I don't know whether we are genuinely going to be going to Cantha anytime soon. But it was a fun place to explore. I didn't get all of the coins there. I haven't been taking my time with those kinds of achievements, but I did spend enough time to see some events, and particularly, I found a bounty here that one poor soul beast, I think it was trying to beat, and the bounty handily wiped us. I really got an experience of some of the active effects that go on these bounties. As you guys know, if you've been watching this series, I really haven't been playing much of that side of the game, and maybe this is why as well I don't have a strong enough appreciation for the amount of group content that's in Path of Fire. Maybe there is a ton. Maybe it doesn't need metas in the Heart of Thorn sense of metas because of the bounties, and I've seen a few comments about that, but because I've not interfaced with it much, I really can't say. But it was a really interesting thing with the active effects. It like forced me to melee sometimes and range at times. I think you had to pick things up in the area to be able to break through blocks, and the boss actually beat us. It couldn't it couldn't be felled, not in a short enough space of time, and so we ended up just kind of moving on. I did do a successful bounty as well, I will add, and got an achievement for it I think like 2 days ago, and forgot to mention in one of these VODs. The number of things that I'm forgetting to mention in these VODs is, believe me, much higher than the things that I've actually managed to mention in them. But there's just so much to get through. How can you accurately summarize 6+ hours of gameplay every single day? Well, it's a bit of a challenge, let me tell you. Along those lines, there is another thing in the Desolation I did again on day 6. That's the adventure. So it looks to me like they're all supply runs. I've heard that there are new hidden adventures associated with the hidden mount as well that only become available once you get that mount. And that is wild that they put that much detail into that system that is so like locked away and secretive is phenomenal. So far, all I've really seen are supply runs, and the one in the Desolation is no different. Or maybe I did talk about this. Did I talk about instantly getting gold again? If I did, then yeah, this is redundant. But I instantly got gold. I'm a bit sad. I would have hoped, there was a small part of me that was hoping that because I was in a later map now, a more endgamey kind of map, maybe the Desolation adventure would be a lot harder, but no, instantly triggered, fire and forget, get the achievement, and never return for the rest of my Guild Wars 2 playing career. Isn't that going to be fun? So that was pretty much the last of the desolation. There was a small cave right near the end of the map that I couldn't figure out how to get into for the longest time, but eventually did. And with that map comp under my belt, it was finally time to move to Vabbi. And like I said, in this map, I mostly did a lot of story. So there's a bit less to talk about, but Christ, Vabbi is great. And Vabbi marks the start of something entirely new for Guild Wars, I think. In that it's the first time we've gone to a major population center in any kind of update and map expansion in this game. So really stop and think about it. What are the places that we've gone to? Well, we've gone to the Maguma jungle, where there have been people living, and there have been cultures, but they've been like quite tribal, quite nomadic, quite secluded from the rest of the world. Not particularly intelligent, not like some massive kingdom or nation, right? We've gone to various other uninhabited regions, like Bloodstone Fen, or like Ember Bay and Draconis Mons, or Bitterfrost Frontier, on the fringes of society. I think the only time we've ever gone to a place that really could be declared a major population center would be Lake Doric, but Lake Doric was already attached to Kryta and didn't need to do a lot of world building and to present the people that lived there in a particularly different light to what the core game already did. It just needed to sort of carry the momentum that 2012 offered, and that was that. So this was a pretty new big thing. The Crystal Desert was a remote region where there wasn't necessarily too much that had to be going on. Helen Riverlands, the Desolation, we start getting into more of it. But finally we're at Vabbi, and Vabbi is like, it's a nation, guys. There's lots of people there. There's a culture there. There's a different way of thinking. It's almost like, I mean, they never added a full raw city in this expansion, like a new Ratasum or Lion's Arch or whatever, but they kind of approximated such a thing with Amnoon Oasis, obviously, in the first map. But going to Vabbi is kind of like, you know, you could imagine a Divinity's Reach style place here. There needs to be a lot of dialogue, a lot of NPCs around, a lot to engage with, not only to introduce to Guild Wars 2 players what this area is like, but also to carry the torch from Guild Wars 1, also where Vabbi had a rich history that's now been twisted in so many ways, right? Because of Palawa Joko's influence, because of the brand having hit, and so forth.
My. More visitors than one would anticipate, considering the world is ending.
Is the world truly ending, Highness?
Only if it is the will of Palawa Joko. Praise Joko.
I didn't realize it until I got to the map, but the fact this is in the expansion, this is a scary thing for the devs. It's like the last map, they actually have a big wall to climb, a lot of things to tackle, a lot to deliver, and they could have easily fallen short. But I have to say they haven't. I've gone to Vabbi, there are a ton of hearts here. There's like 6 hearts. There's a lot to do. I still feel like I've only vaguely scratched the surface. I've done maybe 2 of them, but I genuinely feel like I've got just as much lore and world building and like engagement with the people of this area of the world and understanding of what this area of the world is like in Guild Wars 2 as I did originally in Guild Wars 1. And Guild Wars 1, you know, had the same job. What are the people of Vabbi like? And it sort of demonstrated their wealth and their opulence and their greed and so forth. And we get to see how Guild Wars 2's inherited that. It's also quite a curious thing because the core Guild Wars 2 story doesn't do too much to give this to us. Like, we meet some prominent Vabbian characters, but it's not on the same level as the Guild Wars 1 core story, which had us, like, you know, having parties with the princes and following them to various places and really digging a lot more in. Obviously, the Guild Wars 2 core story is more dealing with, you know, gods and dragons and stuff, so it doesn't get to do much of it, and it's the map itself that has to do it. And they do quite well. So when you first enter Vabbi, there's this brilliant NPC who says, hey, listen, look, there are humans who live here who are in allegiance with the undead. But they're not evil. Believe me, they're not evil. It's just the culture here. Listen, their friends, their family are undead. It's all they know. They genuinely think they've been lied to. It's propaganda, but they genuinely think Joko is the be-all and end-all. These are not bad people. Just because you see them schmoozing with undead, please don't, you know, go all commander mode and try and beat all of their faces in. Give them the benefit of the doubt. If we're ever going to enact change in Vabbi, it's going to be a slow, subtle, social change that's going to take many years. And this was like such a big thing to immediately see. The commander's response is a bit dickish, really. Like, he literally just hears, yeah, these people's friends and family are the undead, and we're like, oh, well, we'll deal with that. It's very much we're forcing our perspective of the world on them, maybe a little bit too much so. But, you know, they deal with this straight away. You get this NPC. And when you go to the hearts are so detailed. So, I spent most of my time around a place called the Necropolis. The architecture, guys. Let me just take a second. Look at this place. Look at the Necropolis. I was a little bit worried that when we got to Vabbi, at this point, because it's the 5th map, they'd kind of be exhausted for assets. and they'd just be reusing and reutilizing stuff I'd already seen. Stuff I'd seen in Amnoon, you know, like that frosty ice temple and some of the other places, the floating ghost city that we saw in the Highlands way up in the sky once you get the Jackal teleport. I was kind of worried that I'd get a big impression of that. But no, look, there were very nice, unique, new-looking buildings and places to go to. And again, it's a civilization center. So there's all these actual houses you can walk inside. And like, it's not just broadly beautiful, but it's on a small scale beautiful. Like I found a small doorway, walked into a room, and it was a tiny temple with the Joko statue that I happened to kneel at. And oh, look, there's an achievement to get all of these. Praise Joko. You know, these beautiful gumball roofs and the sun striking off of the top of them. Watching how you've got all these regal, beautiful palaces mixed in with like this weird undead architecture. It's nice. It feels so alien and interesting. And they proper pulled it off. So the hearts themselves as well, like I said, there's not just a lot of hearts, but they do a lot. There's a lot you can talk about. There's a lot you can interact with. So at the Necropolis, you can like pick up flowers to throw on graves to do them up. You learn a little bit about people becoming awakened here and families that seek to become awakened. There's a skill challenge in the area where you can challenge an entire family to see whether they're like worthy. You can grind up flowers and then throw them into fires for incense. You can watch in a room as an undead man sort of pulls bodies apart and throws their organs around, and you have to catch the organs and sort them into canopic jars. There's a lot here. There's this amazing judging room where I found a very cool event where you fight against a judge who has a break bar. If you don't manage to break the break bar, he banishes you to the crypts beneath the temple. And there's all these undead down there, and they feel like really good RPG crypts, and you've got to work your way out, and it's dangerous and it's scary because the Awakened actually are pretty threatening. Maybe, again, it's just that I'm on Weaver and not doing very strong. We'll see how my Reaper/Scourge experience goes. And you've got to sort of worm your way out, and there's like rich orichalcum down there. It's been really fun, and I've only just sort of started to look into it. Another big area I went to was called the Boneyard, I think, where I think the idea is that Awakened that have been felled or Awakened that weren't good enough, bodies that weren't good enough, the undead just throw them in this giant pit. And you can fall in the pit. There's actually some interesting design there because I think this is the first time I've seen Path of Fire do it. There's a pit that is so big and deep that you cannot walk out of it. The only way to get out is to use a supercharged Springer jump and multiple of them to get out. And if you don't have that, I think you have to waypoint out. I don't know, maybe I missed something, but I haven't seen them do that until now. Maybe they have some confidence. People will have, you know, well-tiered mounts by this time that they get here in the expansion. And then there's these sand portals where if you're riding a jackal and you've got that trained already, you can teleport through. You can meet some undead out in the corner there, and if you made a certain decision early in the story, you can get an item from them. It's a lot of fun. I've been enjoying Vabbi. Beyond this, after I finished the story, I kind of like rushed around a bit because there was a bit of a temptation to maybe go immediately for the Griffin. And so I've seen some areas, but not only skin deep. And I really don't like having this experience where I'm just rushing through maps. So I've decided that what I'm going to do today and tomorrow is just work on Vabbi. Get a nice, happy, good, full experience of Vabbi before I even think about the Griffin. See, I know a lot of us in the community, like look at these VODs, right? I knew about the Griffin because the community told me about the Griffin like day 2. I know a lot of us in the community know about it, and a lot of us really want to rush for it, and we feel like we're in constant competition with those around us. But to me, that's not important. Like, if I think about what the devs wanted people to experience Path of Fire, what they probably wanted was us to get the first 3 mounts, finish the story, do a lot of map exploration, finally get the Jackal as like an optional one at the end. People would be satisfied. You'd kind of have that full story experience, that full map complete experience, that full unlocking of an elite specialization experience, maybe even start a second character. They want you to really exhaust the content, and then probably around there is when the devs would have most liked the community to have cottoned on. Hold on, here's this secret thing, and here's this secret collection, and here's this thing, and at least another thing, and oh my god, there's a secret man. I think probably that's what they wanted, and I'm just guessing there, but I think that's the experience I want to give myself. I want to really know Vabbi before I get this overpowered thing that lets me fly around Vabbi and kind of break the flow of the map, if you will, as I'm pretty sure that Griffin will break the flow of a hell of a lot of Guild Wars 2, and I kind of want to address that on its own at its own point. So yeah, there you go. That is day 6. Kind of funny, isn't it? It took me about, I promised you guys I was going to do a week of these VODs. It's funny how it kind of has taken almost a full week of these VODs to give you a nice overview of the expansion. I swear to God, that was not planned. I did not limit my playtime just so that I could portion out these VODs a bit better. That's just generally the amount of game time I've had out of Path of Fire. And I can tell you already, I'll talk more about this tomorrow probably because that's the end of the week. I can tell you already, the pacing and the speed I've gone through this and the amount I've absorbed from it in the window of time I've absorbed it is way, way, way better in Path of Fire than it ever was in HOT. HOT was very different, and the only time I ever felt like I wasn't hurtling towards the end and quickly running out of stuff was when they had deliberate, like, hammed-in mastery experience gates, which you'll notice Path of Fire didn't do, and Path of Fire didn't have to do. And that's all very, very strong stuff. Let me know if there's any fun things in the open world map of Vabbi that you've seen, you desperately want me to check out, or that I might have missed in previous maps. I've been loving the comments on these videos so much, guys, so do keep them coming. And yeah, big story geek out video. Keep an eye out for it. It'll be coming very soon.